Hello guys and welcome to KlausGaming. Today we're going to continue in her story, the detective game. This is the second episode. In the last episode we learned that she had been involved in a slight fender bender in Glasgow. So now we should investigate that a little bit further. We also learned that she was pregnant and went to the hospital. So here's some videos. Let's check that out.
I got pregnant. Both our parents had a big powwow. We weren't even in the room, and they decided we should get married.
Alright, so they only got married, it seems, because they were pressured into it, because she got pregnant. And she talked a little bit about her parents, and that they pressured her. Watch the next video.
Yes, I'm fine. I won't be sick again. This happens some days. I'm pregnant. It's morning sickness.
Nothing new there?
No. Well, yes. You found out on my birthday. I told him I was pregnant.
So she didn't say anything about his reaction to it? It might be in another video.
It's Rapunzel. The story starts when she's born. Mother Gothel, a witch, takes Rapunzel from her parents and keeps her locked up in this tower. Rapunzel gets pregnant by the prince, and Mother Gothel is furious, so she cuts off her hair and throws it. Actually, her hair's already short here, so that's already happened. So she throws her into the wilderness, and Rapunzel is reunited with the prince, who's blind, but she kills him with her tears, and so it's a happy ending. Is that too much?
Alright. So that was a little bit about Rapunzel, the fairy tale. I don't know how that fits in, or why she was talking about it, and why she was pointing to this image, or painting, or whatever that is. So let's just see if there's more about Rapunzel. It seems there's quite a bit more about Rapunzel. Let's check that out.
Sorry. The picture, the way it's drawn, just reminded me of the books we used to read as children. I read those fairy tales over and over, and they were so real to me. Rapunzel was my favourite. My brain is just full of it. Are any of these in colour?
Alright, so she really loves that story. So if I remember correctly, Rapunzel sat in a tower and she grew her hair long enough that she could climb down from it. Something like that. And she was imprisoned by an evil witch. Now we should probably check out these videos and then search for her parents afterwards to figure out if she had a bad relationship with either her own parents or Simon's parents.
Did I pass? Sorry I messed it up with all that Rapunzel stuff. Do you need me to do that card again?
That card, alright, so they're probably showing her different images to figure out what she sees in them. Something like that, like a psychological profile, I'm guessing. Let's play the next clip.
Could the hairs have come from somewhere else? I mean, could they... We have a lot of dolls in the attic. There's a Rapunzel doll with long blonde hair. Could they have come from there?
Alright, so they must have found some blonde hair. Maybe on the crime scene. Oh, she mentioned a doll also. Let's check out the last clip here.
We were obsessed with fairy tales. Not just the pretty ones, but the traditional ones. They were dark and real, bizarre and violent. Felt like life. We had this huge old book that I think Mum must have bought from a library sale. The illustrations had thin tracing paper over them to protect them. They were in colour. shiny plates. At the front of the book was an index of illustrations. We read that more than the actual stories. We'd read aloud the captions and flip between the pictures. There was something intimate about peeling back the tracing paper, undressing the pictures. Rapunzel's hair is cut. The eagle plucks out his heart. The princess pricks her finger.
All right, the last three things you said had something to do with blood, I guess. Pricks her finger. Let's try and do a search for that. There's quite a lot of videos here. Let's check out the first one.
Okay. I've given blood before. Do you need to take that for your records?
So that seems like a blood sample. Just search for that later, or I guess we would have found it here if there's anything about a blood sample.
Nothing like this has ever happened to me before. The blood. It's probably the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
I don't think there was anything useful in that clip. Except that it was a messy murder, probably.
Well, fine, considering. I got back into the house today, and that was weird, knowing your people had been there through my things. It's like I'd been burgled. I mean, worse, obviously. I don't know. I haven't looked in the cellar yet. They sent a cleaner in. As good as new, he said. But they had to throw some stuff out. Couldn't get the blood out. And I'm still waiting to hear from the coroner so we can get a date set for the funeral. It's going to be a cremation. So...
Alright, so she mentioned that the murder took place in the cellar. She mentioned a coroner. And a funeral. We can investigate that in a little bit. Let's check the last video.
Like I said before, it was 3, something like that. I walked in, saw Simon. He was on the floor of the living room. His throat had been cut. There was a lot of blood. Yeah, he was dead.
Alright, so that's new information. So Simon had his throat cut. Well, I guess that makes it a little bit doubtful if she did it, because she doesn't look that strong. So for her to be able to cut his throat, I would think he would be able to put up some resistance for that. Or maybe he was held up at gunpoint and with his back turned. Let's try and see if there's more about the cellar. Check out the first video.
It was after dinner. I'd spoken to Sam's parents on the phone. I looked up for an early night and I suddenly had this thought. I think it was something his mum had said. She'd been speaking about old stuff, sad stuff, about when we lived there, about the baby. There's some boxes in the cellar, nursery stuff we never needed, and I never had the heart to throw out. And I suddenly remembered that when I'd looked down there the week before, those boxes, that pile was in the wrong place. I went cold all over. I went down there with a torch and went straight to the back, and that's when I saw the bin bags. Pulled them open, saw the body. I screamed and That's when I called the police.
Alright. So the screen flickered a little bit there. I saw something. Maybe that's if you find out enough, you'll see who actually did it. She mentioned a lot of stuff here. She mentioned a baby. So maybe they had a baby earlier or something like that. She mentioned nursery stuff. And bin bags where she found a body. I don't know if that's Simon's body, but I assume it is. That of course makes her the prime suspect, because if he was indeed murdered in the cellar and also cut up and put into bin bags, who else would have the ability to do it in her cellar? But then again, she might have been in Glasgow. She was talking about that. If she wasn't home, then maybe it could have happened anyway in her cellar. Let's try and find out more.
The whole thing was wrong. The bags, I think they were from our kitchen. You can probably check that. We never go into the cellar. It's just a place we put things we don't need. Dad used to grow mushrooms there. The bags were taped up. I think it was parcel tape, but I think it was ours.
Alright, so she mentions that the bags was from the kitchen. And some parcel tape.
It happened very quickly. We hardly had to talk to each other. We agreed almost silently. The baby was what mattered. We'd help each other. We cleaned up. We bagged up the broken mirror, her clothes. They're gone. We took him down to the cellar. We knew we had an alibi, and we wanted the body to be found later. We wanted to have suspicion on us, so we could then disprove it, rather than have it linger. Better to keep the body in the house than risk being seen with it. The watch, that was my touch, to make sure the alibi stuck.
Alright. She just confessed to something. Maybe not the murder of Simon, but the murder of something else, like the baby, because she said we. And she was still married to Simon, so he must have been alive when this confession was made. Must be something with the baby. Mirror. Confession is... what else did she say? Said something about a watch. That was her touch. Alibi. So let's see if we can find out more about the baby. So there's a whole story here.
We spent the wedding night in a hotel in Brighton. It would have been too much to do more. We were saving for the baby. It was wonderful to be in a hotel, away from home, just alone together. Since then, we've always tried to get away for our holiday.
That's about the wedding night. But I don't know if it's useful.
We couldn't afford our own place. Simon dropped out of school, went full-time at the Glaziers. That was Eric's generosity. We moved in with his mum and dad. They had a spare room for us and the baby, if it came. It was a nice change, time to myself, living there for those months, full of hope.
So she mentioned glaciers. Maybe like that. And that they lived with Simon's mom and dad.
No. I lost the baby. I had a miscarriage at 8 months. We carried on living at Simon's parents until, well, it was only a few months after.
Alright, so they lost the baby. So apparently they did not murder the baby and find it. So I don't know what the confession was about yet.
Yes. It was a shock to him. I mean, we never thought it was possible. I don't know what he... I mean, I hadn't decided whether to keep the baby. I wasn't really ready to talk to him about it.
So let's see if we can find out more about that confession. Or the watch that she said was her touch.
I guess you could call it that, but we were both happy to get married. It was a beautiful wedding. We had our first dance to Come Back and Stay. I'm not sure if that's a good wedding song, but I loved it. I chose it. I mean, it was genuinely our first dance. We'd never danced together before. It was probably awful to watch, but I enjoyed it. It felt like it was just me and Simon for that moment. Just the two of us.
Well, that's not the kind of watch I was looking for, but yeah. First dance was the topic of that.
Yes. We'd fight. We fought on the beach once and I held Eve's head underwater. There was no one else around. It was at the far end of the beach. And I held her head under and I kept it out. And for a moment, I just wanted to kill her and watch her drown. But that was it. It was just a moment. We made up after. It was a love-hate relationship.
Alright, so she describes a very dark side to her, that she could even think that and actually hold her underwater for a while. She mentions Eve. We don't know who that is, maybe her sister, probably. Let's search for Eve.
Well, my friend Eve. I mean, she was a friend from when I was a kid. And she was always more popular with the boys, and I used to hate her for it. I mean, really hate her sometimes.
Alright, so Eve was a good-looking girl, I take it. If she was more popular than the one that's being interrogated, who is also pretty good-looking. Let's watch the next one.
A police station. Yeah. When I was young, we ran away on my birthday. Bob Dylan was playing in London and we thought we could break into his tour bus and have him take us with him. The taxi driver we paid to drop us off, I mean, we'd saved money, pinched a bit here and there to pay for the fare. He was suspicious because we were so young, so he told the police. So they came and picked us up and took me back to Portsmouth. My mum picked me up from the station. But I blamed everything on my friend Eve, so my parents let me off.
Alright, so she didn't have any scruples about blaming Eve for what happened?
What are you doing talking about Eve? Poor Simon.
Alright, so she had a moment to herself there. And she mentioned what must be her own name.
My mother called me Eve.
What? Alright, this is getting interesting. So her own name is Hannah and her mother called her Eve. At least that's what I think. Let's try and search for Hannah.
My name is Hannah. H-A-N-N-A-H. It's a palindrome. It reads the same backwards as forwards. It doesn't work if you mirror it though, it's not quite symmetrical, but well, I mean, you get the idea. Sorry. Hannah Smith, I live at 31 Gladstone Street.
Alright, Gladstone Street. And we got her last name, it's Smith. Well, of course it is, because Simon's name was also Simon Smith, I think, and they were married.
Yes, my name is Hannah Smith. Oh, shit. Sorry.
Alright, so she's taking a polygraph. To detect lies.
Across the road, where my parents first lived there, was a midwife called Florence. When Hannah was born, I was born at the same time. The midwife was there to help. I'd been throttled by the cord, probably wrapped around my neck by Hannah. The midwife told my mother I was dead. But I wasn't. She wrote all this stuff in a diary. Amazing what people will admit to on paper.
Alright, that was a little bit scary there. We got an even better glimpse at the suspect. Alright, it's also scary what she said. It seems like she has a personality disorder. Because she said that both Hannah and Eve were born that day, and Hannah tried to throttle her, but Florence saved her, I guess, the midwife. So I think she's quite wacko. That's my diagnosis. Yeah, so let's see if we can find out more about Florence. There's a lot about the midwife here.
Florence took me home with her. Mother hadn't been expecting twins and had a healthy baby. I guess she was just happy for Florence to clean up. Take away the evidence that this was anything but a happy occasion.
Alright, so we got an even stronger glimpse there. So apparently, well, her version of the story is that her mother had twins and Florence took Eve back to Florence's residence, and the mother was happy to only have the other girl named Hannah, I guess. Yeah, let's continue to watch the next clip.
Florence raised me in her home. I never left it. She kept me out of sight. It wasn't odd for people to see a midwife with a baby, carrying in supplies, washing nappies, that sort of thing. I never knew any different. I grew up looking out of my window and seeing her across the road. I thought it was like a reflection in a mirror. She was me.
Alright, so her story is that she grew up at Florence's house and she never left it, and Florence kept her in the house, and Eve apparently watched Hannah grow up happy across the street with her real mother as a reflection in the mirror, and she figured that she was her, or wanted to be her. So this might be a true story, or it might be her personality disorder. We'll have to figure that out.
Florence was a warm, kind person. But she was broken, I guess. When I found her diary, I also found a biscuit tin with other stuff in it. Older papers, letters, that kind of thing. Her story wasn't there. I never really spoke to her about it. I was far too young to really understand, I guess. I just put it together later, once I was older. She had loved children, planned to have a large family, but her husband died in the war. And that was back when you married for life. She never felt like she could marry again. Isn't that strange? She was a widow from her 20s. But, I mean, I guess it was different then. You know, you married for life and she felt she could never marry again. I guess it was harder, a war widow. One of the dead. I don't know, maybe there was more to it than that. I don't really know.
Alright, so she's fleshing out this story about Florence a lot. So there might be some merit to it. She's a war widow, Florence, and she mentioned letters. Let's try and do a search for letters.
When we weren't together, we'd send secret messages by tapping out a code that we'd learned from a book, the knock code. Something prisoners of war would use. We'd tap them out on radiator pipes or the attic floor. Dad thought we had mice, but they couldn't find any. Bought a cat anyway.
That's funny. Alright, so there's a knock code. Let's try and do a search for that. There's nothing new. She also mentioned a cat. Wow, there's a lot of videos relating to the cat. But you know what, guys, we'll do those videos in the next episode. This is all we have time for. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.